At some point, every person asks this question of himself. What is it that actually gives life meaning? Is meaning found in what we earn, in what we accumulate over the years, in the positions we reach, or the titles we carry? Or is it shaped by something far less visible, by the way we think when no one is listening, by the direction we choose when no one is guiding us, and by the kind of person we become through the ordinary days of our lives? Life has a way of offering many answers to this question, some loud, some persuasive, some comforting. Yet not all answers satisfy for very long. There are lives filled with activity that still feel unfinished. There are days packed with effort that somehow feel empty by evening. This raises an interesting thought. Perhaps meaning is not something added to life from the outside. Perhaps it is something shaped quietly from within. A person can move quickly and still feel lost. He can remain busy and still feel unsure of where he is going. And when direction is unclear, even success can feel strangely weightless. Meaning seems to appear when a life begins to point somewhere, not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily, through decisions that are made with intention rather than habit. There is a difference between passing time and investing it, between reacting to life and directing it, between living by default and living by design. When a person knows why he rises in the morning, when his thoughts are aligned with something he considers worthwhile, when his actions serve a purpose beyond simple survival, life begins to feel grounded, whole, coherent. Meaning does not demand perfection. It does not require applause or recognition. It grows quietly when thought, action, and direction begin to agree with one another. And perhaps that is why the question of meaning never truly leaves us alone. It is not meant to trouble us. It is meant to guide us. Because once a person understands what gives his life meaning, the confusion that once filled his days begins to soften. Decisions become simpler. Effort becomes purposeful. And life, even in its ordinary moments, begins to feel worthwhile. Direction gives life weight. Meaning does not arrive suddenly, like an answer written in the sky. It develops gradually as a life begins to move in a chosen direction. Direction is a quiet force. It does not announce itself, yet it gives weight to every step a person takes. Without direction, effort scatters. Energy is spent, but little is built. Days are filled, yet they do not seem to add up to anything solid. A man can work hard and still feel uncertain. He can stay active and still feel restless, not because he lacks ability, but because his efforts are not aimed. When direction is absent, life becomes reactive. One responds to what appears, adjusts to what happens, and moves wherever circumstances push. In such a life, nothing feels wrong exactly, and yet nothing feels quite right either. There is movement, but no progress. There is activity, but little satisfaction. The days pass, but they do not seem to lead anywhere in particular. Direction changes this. When a person decides what his life is for, even in simple terms, his thoughts begin to organize themselves. His actions begin to support one another, and his time begins to feel invested rather than spent. Decisions become easier, not because life becomes simple, but because there is a standard by which choices can be measured. Some paths are accepted, others are quietly declined. Direction acts like a compass. It does not remove obstacles, but it prevents wandering. This does not require grand ambition. It requires clarity. Clarity about what matters. Clarity about what deserves attention. Clarity about what kind of person one intends to become. With direction, effort gains meaning. Even difficult work feels purposeful when it serves a chosen aim. Even slow progress feels acceptable when it moves towards something worthwhile. Meaning grows when daily actions serve a purpose beyond the moment, when effort is connected to intention, when thought is guided instead of wandering. A directed life does not eliminate difficulty, but it gives difficulty context. It turns challenge into progress rather than frustration. Setbacks are no longer proof of failure. They become part of movement, part of learning, part of becoming, and perhaps this is why meaning feels absent when direction is missing. Life is not asking us to hurry. It is not demanding constant motion. It is asking us to aim, to decide quietly and honestly what we are moving toward, and then to allow our days to follow that decision. Thought gives meaning its shape. If direction gives life weight, then thought gives it shape. Long before a person's life feels meaningful or empty, his thinking has already begun to lean in a certain direction, not through sudden insight, but through repetition. A life is quietly shaped by the thoughts it returns to most often. Not the occasional thought, but the familiar ones, the thoughts that pass through the mind without resistance. These thoughts influence what a person expects from life. They influence what he attempts, what he postpones, and what he quietly accepts as permanent. Thought does not announce its influence. It works patiently. Day by day, it forms the outline of a person's inner world. When thinking lacks direction, meaning feels vague. When thinking is scattered, life feels unsettled. And when thinking is left unattended, it begins to follow habit rather than intention. This is not a question of intelligence. It is a question of attention. A person may be capable, skilled, and sincere, yet still feel unsure of himself simply because his thinking has never been deliberately chosen. Thought gains power when it is guided. When a person decides what ideas he will live with, what standards he will hold himself to, and what he will no longer allow to shape his outlook. This does not require constant effort. It requires consistency. A man who knows where he is going begins to think differently. He becomes more selective. He pauses before accepting assumptions. He weighs ideas instead of absorbing them. Gradually, his thinking begins to support his direction rather than distract from it. Doubt loses some of its authority. Confusion softens. Inner conflict becomes less frequent. Meaning does not emerge from random thought. It grows from thought that is aligned with purpose. When thinking supports direction, action gains stability, and when action becomes stable, life begins to feel grounded, not effortless, not free of uncertainty, but coherent. Meaning, in this sense, is not something added to life. It is revealed when thought, direction, and action begin to move together. And when they do, life no longer feels scattered across many directions. It begins to feel like a single movement, carried forward with intention. Meaning is completed by who we become. Direction gives life weight. Thought gives it shape. But meaning does not fully settle into a life until it is carried by character. A person may know where he is going. He may think carefully about his aims. Yet something remains unfinished until his way of living reflects what he values. Meaning deepens when belief and behavior begin to agree. When what a person considers important becomes visible in how he conducts himself, in how he keeps his word, in how he treats others, and in how he behaves when no one is present to observe him. Becoming is not dramatic. It does not arrive with recognition or announcement. It happens quietly, through repeated choices made in ordinary moments. It happens when a person chooses patience over impulse, when he completes what he has promised, even when it would be easier not to, when he responds thoughtfully rather than reflexively, when he maintains his standards in situations where compromise would go unnoticed. These moments may appear insignificant, yet they accumulate, and over time, they form identity. A life begins to feel meaningful when a person respects the man he is becoming, not because that man is flawless, but because he is consistent. There is a certain calm that comes from self-respect. It does not depend on praise or approval. It arises from knowing that one's actions align with one's values. Meaning does not require perfection. It requires integrity. When a person lives in quiet agreement with himself, there is less inner conflict. less explanation required, less need to justify his choices to the world. Life feels steadier when identity is clear. And perhaps this is why meaning fades when a person lives out of alignment, when actions contradict intentions, when habits undermine purpose, and when short-term comfort is chosen at the expense of long-term character. Meaning returns when becoming is intentional, not hurried, not forced, but guided. A person does not suddenly arrive at meaning, he grows into it. He grows into it by choosing the kind of man he wishes to be, and then practicing that choice day after ordinary day. In this way, meaning is not something achieved, it is something embodied. And when character begins to carry direction and thought together, life acquires a depth that cannot be explained, only lived. When meaning seems to disappear, meaning rarely leaves all at once. It withdraws gradually, often without drawing attention to itself. A person does not suddenly awaken feeling disconnected from his life. The feeling develops slowly, through days lived without reflection, through choices made automatically, through habits that continue long after intention has faded. Life goes on, responsibilities remain, the structure of the day holds together. Effort begins to feel heavier than it once did. Satisfaction becomes harder to locate. Even moments of rest do not seem to restore what they once did. This condition is often mistaken for tiredness or boredom or dissatisfaction with circumstances. But beneath these explanations lies something quieter. Meaning has moved away from the center. When direction weakens, when thought becomes repetitive rather than deliberate, when becoming is no longer considered, life begins to feel thinner. Not empty, just shallow. There may still be achievement, there may still be movement, but the sense of connection between one day and the next begins to fade. Meaning does not protest when it is neglected. It does not demand attention, it simply recedes. And so a person may attempt to compensate. He may increase his activity. He may take on more responsibility. He may try to outrun the feeling through effort alone. But meaning does not respond to busyness. It does not return through motion without direction. It responds to alignment. Meaning begins to return when a person pauses long enough to notice where his life is pointing. When he begins to ask, quietly and honestly, whether his days reflect what he values. When he remembers the standards he once held for himself and chooses to live by them again. Meaning is patient. It does not rush us. It does not accuse. It waits for thought to regain clarity, for direction to regain purpose, for character to regain consistency. And when these return, meaning follows. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but steadily. A sense of rightness begins to reappear. Decisions feel less scattered. Effort begins to feel worthwhile again. Life does not need to be rebuilt from the ground up. It needs to be realigned. Meaning does not ask for a new life. It asks for renewed intention within the life already being lived. And when intention returns, meaning quietly resumes its place, not as a feeling to pursue, but as a condition of living with purpose. Meaning returns through ordinary choices. Meaning rarely returns through a single decision. It re-enters life gradually, through choices so ordinary they are often overlooked. A person does not need to change his surroundings to restore meaning. He needs to change how he inhabits them. Meaning begins to return when a man chooses how he will think at the start of his day, not dramatically, simply by deciding what will guide his attention and what will not. It returns when he chooses to finish what he begins, when he approaches his work with care, even when the work feels familiar, when he resists the urge to rush and instead allows himself to be thorough. These choices may seem minor, yet they quietly re-establish self-respect. Meaning grows when a person acts deliberately rather than automatically, when he speaks with intention instead of habit, when he listens fully instead of waiting to respond. There is a difference between filling time and honoring it. Meaning is restored when time is treated as something entrusted rather than something to be used up. A man begins to feel grounded again when his actions reflect what he values, not occasionally, but consistently. There is dignity in ordinary discipline, in showing up prepared, in keeping one's word, in doing simple things carefully, even when no one notices. These acts do not draw attention, but they rebuild alignment. Meaning does not require enthusiasm. It requires steadiness. When effort is applied with intention, even routine tasks acquire significance. They become expressions of choice rather than obligations. As these choices accumulate, a quiet confidence begins to return. Not confidence built on comparison, but confidence rooted in reliability. A person begins to trust himself again. He knows where he stands. He knows what he can depend on. Meaning does not appear as excitement. It appears as coherence. Days begin to feel connected rather than fragmented. Decisions feel less burdensome. Life regains a sense of continuity. Meaning does not demand escape from responsibility. It grows inside responsibility when responsibility is met with purpose rather than resistance. And when a person chooses to live deliberately where he already stands, meaning settles back into his life, quietly, steadily, without asking to be noticed. So we return to the question with which we began. What is it that truly gives life meaning? Not a single achievement, not a possession, not a moment of recognition. Meaning appears when a life is given direction, when thought is chosen rather than inherited, when daily action reflects what a person quietly values. It grows as a man becomes someone he respects, not because he is perfect, but because he is intentional. A meaningful life is rarely loud. It does not demand attention. It does not announce itself to others. It is felt privately, in the steadiness of one's decisions, in the absence of constant inner conflict, in the sense that time is being invested rather than spent. Meaning is not something waiting to be discovered somewhere else. It is formed where a person already stands, through the way he thinks, the direction he chooses, and the character he practices each day. And when these are aligned, life begins to feel complete, not finished, but grounded. Perhaps that is all meaning ever asks of us, that we live deliberately, become consciously, and move steadily toward what we consider worthwhile. When that happens, life no longer feels like something to endure or escape. It becomes something to inhabit, fully, thoughtfully, and with quiet purpose.